First principles thinking drives complex problem solving and workplace innovation through reverse engineering. Companies that employ first principles thinking are one step ahead as they plan and build for the future. Today, we will tell you everything about it. A first principle is a basic assumption that cannot be deduced any further. Over 2,000 years ago, Aristotle defined a first principle as the first basis from which a thing is known. First principles thinking is a fancy way of saying, think like a scientist. Scientists don't assume anything. They start with questions like, what are we absolutely sure is true? What has been proven? In theory, first principles thinking requires you to dig deeper and deeper until you are left with only the fundamental truths of a situation. René Descartes, the French philosopher and scientist, embraced this approach with a method now called Cartesian doubt, in which he would systematically doubt everything he could possibly doubt until he was left with what he saw as purely indubitable truths. In practice, you don't have to simplify every problem down to the atomic level to get the benefits of first principles thinking. You just need to go 1 or 2 levels deeper than most people. Different solutions present themselves at different layers of abstraction. John Boyd, the famous fighter pilot and military strategist, created the following thought experiment, which showcases how to use first principles thinking in a practical way. Imagine you have 3 things: a motorboat with a skier behind it, a military tank, and a bicycle. Now, let's break these items down into their constituent parts. Motorboat. Motor, the hull of a boat, and a pair of skis. Tank. Metal treads, steel armor plates, and a gun. Bicycle. Handlebars, wheels, gears, and a seat. What can you create from these individual parts? One option is to make a snowmobile by combining the handlebars and seat from the bike, the metal treads from the tank, and the motor and skis from the boat. This is the process of first principles thinking in a nutshell. It is a cycle of breaking a situation down into the core pieces and then putting them all back together in a more effective way. Deconstruct, then reconstruct. The snowmobile example also highlights another hallmark of first principles thinking, which is the combination of ideas from seemingly unrelated fields. A tank and a bicycle appear to have nothing in common, but pieces of a tank and a bicycle can be combined to develop innovations like a snowmobile. Many of the most groundbreaking ideas in history have been a result of boiling things down to the first principles and then substituting a more effective solution for one of the key parts. For instance, Johannes Gutenberg combined the technology of a screw press, a device used for making wine, with movable type, paper, and ink to create a printing press. Movable type had been used for centuries, but Gutenberg was the first person to consider the constituent parts of the process and adapt technology from an entirely different field to make printing far more efficient. The result was a world-changing innovation and a widespread distribution of information for the first time in history. The best solution is not where everyone is already looking. First principles thinking helps you to cobble together information from different disciplines to create new ideas and innovations. You start by getting to the facts. Once you have a foundation of facts, you can make a plan to improve each little piece. This process naturally leads to exploring widely for better substitutes. First principles thinking can be easy to describe, but quite difficult to practice. One of the primary obstacles to first principles thinking is our tendency to optimize form rather than function. The story of the suitcase provides a perfect example. In ancient Rome, soldiers used leather messenger bags and satchels to carry food while riding across the countryside. At the same time, the Romans had many vehicles with wheels like chariots, carriages, and wagons. And yet, for thousands of years, nobody thought to combine the bag and the wheel. The first rolling suitcase wasn't invented until 1970, when Bernard Sodot was hauling his luggage through an airport and saw a worker rolling a heavy machine on a wheeled skid. Throughout the 1800s and 1900s, leather bags were specialized for particular uses: backpacks for school, rucksacks for hiking, suitcases for travel. Zippers were added to bags in 1938. Nylon backpacks were first sold in 1967. Despite these improvements, the form of the bag remained largely the same. Innovators spent all of their time making slight iterations on the same theme. What looks like innovation is often an iteration of previous forms, rather than the improvement of the core function. While everyone else was focused on how to build a better bag form, Sodot considered how to store and move things more efficiently, function. The human tendency for imitation is a common roadblock for first principles thinking. When most people envision the future, they project the current form forward, rather than projecting the function forward and abandoning the form. For instance, when criticizing technological progress, some people ask, "Where are the flying cars?" Here's the thing, we have flying cars. They're called airplanes. People who ask this question are so focused on form, a flying object that looks like a car, that they overlook the function, transportation by flight. This is what Elon Musk is referring to when he says that people often live life by analogy. Be wary of the ideas you inherit. Old conventions and previous forms are often accepted without question, and once accepted, they set a boundary around creativity. This difference is one of the key distinctions between continuous improvement and first principles thinking. Continuous improvement tends to occur within the boundaries set by the original vision. By comparison, first principles thinking requires you to abandon your allegiance to previous forms and put the function front and center. What are you trying to accomplish? What is the functional outcome you are looking to achieve? Optimize the function, ignore the form. This is how you learn to think for yourself. Ironically, perhaps the best way to develop cutting-edge ideas is to start by breaking things down to the fundamentals. Even if you aren't trying to develop innovative ideas, understanding the first principles of your field is a smart use of your time. Without a firm grasp of the basics, there is little chance of mastering the details that make the difference at elite levels of competition. Every innovation, including the most groundbreaking ones, require a long period of iteration and improvement. The company at the beginning of this article, SpaceX, ran many simulations, made thousands of adjustments, and required multiple trials before they figured out how to build an affordable and reusable rocket. First principles thinking does not remove the need for continuous improvement, but it does alter the direction of improvement. Without reasoning by first principles, you spend your time making small improvements to a bicycle rather than a snowmobile. First principles thinking sets you on a different trajectory. If you want to enhance an existing process or belief, continuous improvement is a great option. If you want to learn how to think for yourself, reasoning from first principles is one of the best ways to do it. Most of us have no problem thinking about what we want to achieve in life, at least when we're young. We're full of big dreams, big ideas, and boundless energy. The problem is that we let others tell us what's possible, not only when it comes to our dreams, but also when it comes to how we go after them. And when we let other people tell us what's possible or what the best way to do something is, we outsource our thinking to someone else. The real power of first principles thinking is moving away from incremental improvement and into possibility. Letting others think for us means we're using their analogies, their conventions, and their possibilities. It means we've inherited a world that conforms to what they think. This is incremental thinking. When we take what already exists and improve on it, we are in the shadow of others. It's only when we step back, ask ourselves what's possible, and cut through the flawed analogies that we see what is possible. Analogies are beneficial. They make complex problems easier to communicate and increase understanding. Using them, however, is not without a cost. They limit our beliefs about what's possible and allow people to argue without ever exposing our faulty thinking. Analogies move us to see the problem in the same way that someone else sees the problem. The gulf between what people currently see because their thinking is framed by someone else and what is physically possible is filled by people who use first principles to think through problems. First principles thinking clears the clutter of what we've told ourselves and allows us to rebuild from the ground up. Sure, it's a lot of work, but that's why so few people are willing to do it. It's also why the rewards for filling the chasm between possible and incremental improvement tend to be non-linear. What are your thoughts about it? Thanks for watching.